The three sons of Dusthaven beat down mercilessly on Jace Thornton's weathered face as he hauled the last barrel of synth water toward the hydration grid. His settlement, calling it a ranch, felt too generous. Consisted of 6 biodomes struggling to produce crops in soil that fought against every seed, and a HAB unit that leaked during dust storms. But it was his, carved from nothing over 4 brutal years. "Think she'll show, Rook?" Jace asked, glancing at the rust-colored dog panting beside him. Rook tilted his head, ears perked, then barked once and sprinted toward the horizon. Jace's heart stuttered. A transport was descending, its ion thrusters kicking up curtains of amber dust that caught the triple sunlight. He'd waited 8 months for this day, exchanging messages with Delara, a botanist from the Undari system who'd agreed to join him through celestial matches. Someone to share this harsh beauty with, someone to make the silence less heavy. He wiped his hands on his faded work pants and jogged toward the landing pad, really just a cleared circle of packed earth. The transport touched down with a hydraulic hiss, and Jace's practiced greeting died in his throat. The woman who emerged was not Delara. She was taller, for one thing, with skin that seemed to shift between alabaster and the faintest lavender depending on how the light hit her. Her hair cascaded in waves of deep plum, nearly black but threaded with strands that caught the light like fiber optics. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold, violet with flecks of silver that seemed to swirl like nebulae. She wore a traveler's coat over fitted clothing that suggested function over fashion, and she moved with the fluid grace of someone comfortable in zero-G and high gravity alike. A pack was slung over her shoulder and she paused at the transport's ramp, taking in the settlement with an expression Jace couldn't read. "You're not Delara," Jace said, his voice hoarse from surprise and the dry air. The woman's lips curved into something between a smile and a grimace. "No, I'm Nissa Vale." She descended the ramp fully, and Rook immediately growled low in his throat. She glanced at the dog and something passed through her eyes. Calculation, perhaps assessment. "And you must be Jace Thornton. What happened to Delara?" Jace's mind raced through possibilities. None of them good? Nissa reached into her coat and produced a data chip, holding it out to him. "She sold me her contract. Legally. Everything's documented. The Celestial Matches Agency approved the transfer." She took a step closer, and Jace caught a scent like rain on hot stone, impossible and intoxicating on this desert world. She wasn't cut out for frontier life. "I am." Jace took the chip but didn't look away from her face. "And what exactly are you cut out for?" "Survival." The word came out flat, factual. "I've lived on 17 different worlds, adapted to 12 different atmospheric compositions. I can grow things in environments that would kill most botanists." She gestured to his struggling biodomes. "I can help you here, Jace. That's what you need, isn't it?" Not romance survival, it was true. The settlement was failing. His last crop had yielded 30% below projections. The soil synthesizers were breaking down faster than he could repair them. He needed help desperately, but something in Nissa's eyes made him hesitate. She was running from something. He'd spent enough time with desperate people to recognize the signs. "What are you really doing here?" he asked quietly. Nissa's expression shifted, became almost vulnerable. "Same thing you're doing. Trying to build something. Start over." She looked past him to the struggling biodomes, the HAB unit, the vast emptiness beyond. "This is about as far from civilization as you can get without falling off the galactic map. That's exactly what I need. You're running, aren't we all?" She met his eyes again, and Jace felt something electric pass between them. "Look, I know this isn't what you expected. If you want me to leave, I will. But give me 1 week. Let me prove I can help you save this place. If I can't, I'll use the return passage on my contract." Rook had stopped growling and was now circling Nissa cautiously, sniffing. She crouched down slowly, offering her hand palm up. The dog sniffed, considered, then licked her fingers once before looking back at Jace as if to say, "She's acceptable." Jace ran a hand through his sun-bleached hair. Every instinct screamed that this woman was trouble. But trouble wrapped in mystery, offering skills he desperately needed, with eyes that made him forget how to breathe properly. That was a different kind of danger altogether. 1 week, he said finally. "You can take the spare room in the HAB unit." "But I want answers, Nissa. Real ones." She straightened, and her smile was genuine this time, transforming her face from striking to beautiful. "Deal. Now show me your soil composition data." I'm guessing your problem starts with mineral imbalance and cascades from there. As they walked toward the HAB unit, Nissa beside him and Rook trailing behind, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully isolated life had just been permanently disrupted. He'd wanted a partner to share his quiet struggle. Instead, he'd gotten a woman who looked at his dying crops with the focused intensity of someone solving a puzzle, and who glanced over her shoulder at the sky like she expected pursuit. That night, after Nissa had spent 6 hours analyzing his agricultural data with a competence that both impressed and unnerved him, Jace lay in his bunk and listened to the HAB unit's familiar creaks and groans. From the spare room he heard nothing. No movement, no breathing he could detect through the thin walls. It was entirely possible he'd just invited a ghost into his home, or something infinitely more dangerous. Hope. The dawn arrived in layers of gold and crimson, painting Dusthaven's sky like a bleeding masterpiece. Jace woke to find Nissa already outside, kneeling in the dirt beside Biodome 3 with what looked like a portable analysis kit spread around her like ritual offerings. Her hair was tied back, and in the early light, he could see the faint luminescence of her skin, something he'd missed in yesterday's harsh triple sun glare. "You're up early," he called, carrying 2 cups of synth coffee from the HAB unit. Nissa glanced up, and for a moment her expression was unguarded, focused, passionate, alive. Then the mask slipped back into place. "Couldn't sleep. Your planet has a 17-hour rotation. My circadian rhythm is calibrated for 22. She accepted the coffee with a nod of thanks. "Besides, I think I found your problem." Jace crouched beside her, studying the readings on her scanner. "The silicon carbide ratio?" "Exactly. It's bonding with the nitrogen your crops need, making it biologically unavailable." Her fingers flew across the holographic interface. "But if we introduce a catalyst, something to break those bonds, your yield should triple within 2 growing cycles." "What kind of catalyst?" Nissa's pause lasted a heartbeat too long. "Something I can synthesize. I'll need access to your supply stores in about 6 hours. Jace watched her carefully. "That's not standard terraforming knowledge." "No," she admitted, meeting his eyes. "It's not." Before he could press further, Rook began barking frantically from his position near the landing pad. Both of them turned to see 3 vehicles approaching across the salt flats. Too fast, too aggressive. Not traders or supply runners. "Damn it," Nissa breathed, all color draining from her face. "They found me." Jace's hand instinctively went to the plasma rifle mounted by the HAB unit door. "Who?" "Darkwater Securities. Corporate mercenaries." She was already on her feet, scanning the horizon with eyes that suddenly looked far more predatory than frightened. "How many ways off this rock do you have?" "Just the landing pad, and those vehicles are between us and any transport I could call." Jace's mind raced. "What did you steal, Nissa?" She turned to him, and he saw real fear in her alien eyes. "Something they'll kill us both to get back. Something worth killing 1,000 people to keep secret." The lead vehicle skidded to a stop 50 meters from the HAB unit, and 6 figures emerged. They moved with military precision, weapons drawn but not yet aimed. The man in front was human, dark-skinned, bald, with the kind of scars that told stories of survival against odds. He wore tactical gear marked with the Darkwater logo, a black water droplet over crossed blades. "Nissa Vale," he called out, his voice carrying easily across the distance. "Been a long hunt. Ready to come peacefully?" Nissa stepped forward, positioning herself slightly in front of Jace. "Hello, Silas. Still doing Helix Corporation's dirty work, I see." Silas Darkwater smiled without humor. "Still stealing things that don't belong to you, I see. Makes us a predictable pair." His gaze shifted to Jace. "You're Thornton, the rancher. Registered settler, clean record. You probably don't know what you're harboring." "I know she's my contracted partner," Jace said evenly, moving to stand beside Nissa. "Legally documented through celestial matches. That gives her settler protections under frontier law." "Clever," Silas acknowledged. "But it won't save her when Marshal Crane arrives. We've already filed theft charges through proper channels." As if summoned, another vehicle appeared on the horizon. This one bearing the Colonial Marshal's insignia. Nissa's jaw tightened. "You set this up." "I'm a professional," Silas replied. "Now you can make this easy and hand over the research. Or we can make it complicated for everyone involved. Marshal Thaddeus Crane was a Gorian, 7 feet of scaled muscle with eyes like molten copper, and a reputation for fairness that was rare on frontier worlds. He emerged from his vehicle slowly, taking in the scene with deliberate calm. "Mr. Darkwater," he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "I received your complaint about stolen corporate property. Care to explain why you've brought an armed team to a civilian settlement before waiting for my investigation?" "Just protecting corporate interests, Marshal," Silas said smoothly. "The woman is dangerous." "I'm a botanist," Nisa countered. "I worked for Helix Corporation's agricultural division. I discovered something they didn't want discovered, and when I tried to expose it, they branded me a thief." Crane's copper eyes fixed on her. "What did you discover?" Nissa glanced at Jace, then back to the Marshal. Here, in this moment, she had to make a choice, and Jace could see her weighing it. "Trust a frontier lawman with the truth or keep running forever. They developed a terraforming accelerant," she said finally. "Codename Phoenix Strain. It can turn dead worlds into paradises in months instead of decades. But it has side effects they're hiding. Neurological damage to colonists exposed during the transformation process. 20% fatality rate, with survivors experiencing progressive cognitive decline." The words fell like stones into still water, rippling outward in implications. "That's absurd," Silas interjected, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Nisa pulled a small data crystal from inside her coat. "I have the research files, the test results from Kepler 9-8. The colony that mysteriously failed 3 years ago. It didn't fail. The colonists died or went mad. Helix buried the evidence and blamed it on environmental factors." Marshal Crane's expression darkened. "Those are serious allegations. Which is why we need to retrieve the stolen data and investigate properly through legal channels," Silas said quickly. "Not take the word of a corporate fugitive." Jace felt Nisa tense beside him, felt the weight of the decision pressing down on all of them. He thought of his dying crops, his failing settlement, thought of the desperation that had driven him to send for a bride through an agency, thought of the woman who'd appeared instead, mysterious, brilliant, terrified. "Marshal Crane," Jace said, his voice steady. "Frontier law grants 24 hours for settler disputes to be resolved through mediation before arrests can be made. I'm invoking that right for my contracted partner." Crane's head swiveled toward him. "You're sure about that, Thornton? Once you invoke mediation, you become legally responsible for her actions during that period." "I'm sure." Silas's expression hardened. "Don't be a fool, Thornton. You have no idea what you're protecting." "Maybe not," Jace agreed. "But I know corporate mercenaries showing up with guns drawn before the law even gets involved. That tells me something about who's really in the wrong here." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Marshal Crane nodded slowly. 24 hours. We'll convene mediation at sunset tomorrow in neutral territory, the trading post at Redstone Junction." He fixed Nisa with his copper gaze. "If you run, I will hunt you myself. Understood?" "Understood," Nisa said quietly. Silas opened his mouth to protest, but Crane cut him off. "That's frontier law, Mr. Darkwater. You want to operate in my jurisdiction, you follow my rules. 24 hours. Use them to prepare your case." As the vehicles departed, leaving only settling dust and tension, Jace turned to Nisa. She was trembling, not with fear, he realized, but with barely contained emotion. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice raw. "You don't even know if I'm telling the truth." "No," Jace admitted, "but I've seen enough corporate operations on frontier worlds to know how they work. And I've seen how you look at my dying crops, like they're a puzzle you're desperate to solve, not a resource to exploit." He stepped closer. "So prove me right. Show me what you can really do." Nisa's violet eyes searched his face, and something shifted in her expression, walls crumbling, revealing the person underneath the running, the fear, the secrets. "Come with me to Biodome 3, she said. "I'll show you everything." Inside the biodome, surrounded by struggling plants and failing soil, Nissa pulled out a small case from her pack. Inside were 6 vials of iridescent liquid that seemed to move with its own internal light. "This is what I stole," she said. "Phoenix strain samples and the complete research data. I was going to sell it to a black market contact who could distribute it to independent scientists. But then," she looked at him, "then I saw your posting. A human rancher on the edge of nowhere, desperate enough to send for a stranger. And I thought, what if I could do both? Hide and prove the research works safely. You want to use it here? Jace realized. On my settlement. With proper controls, careful monitoring, yes. I can save your crops, Jace. I can show what this technology can do when it's used right. But I need your permission. I need your trust. Jace looked at the vials, then at the dying plants around them. Then at the woman who'd appeared in his life like a storm. Dangerous, powerful, and impossible to ignore. One condition, he said. No more secrets between us. Not about this. Nissa nodded, and when she smiled, it transformed her entire face. No more secrets. As they began preparing the application protocol, working side by side in the biodome's artificial light, Jace felt something shift between them. A partnership forged in risk, built on desperate hope. They had 24 hours to change everything. The real question was whether they'd survive long enough to see it through. The first signs appeared at dusk. The western sky, normally a gradient of amber fading to violet, turned the color of old bruises, purple-black clouds roiling with internal fury. Jace had seen dust-haven storms before, but this one made his instincts scream danger. We need to secure everything, he said, watching the wall of darkness advance across the salt flats. These storms can strip paint off metal and bury a HAB unit in 2 hours. Nissa stood beside him on the observation platform, her hair whipping in the rising wind. She'd spent the last 6 hours carefully applying Phoenix strain to a controlled section of Biodome 3, her hands glowing with that strange luminescence as she worked. Now she watched the approaching storm with an expression Jace couldn't read. On my homeworld, we called storms like this truth-bringers, she said softly. They strip away everything false, leave only what's real enough to survive. Poetic, Jace replied, already moving toward the equipment lockers. But I prefer my HAB unit in one piece. Help me lock down the biodomes. They worked in synchronized silence, Jace impressed by how quickly Nissa adapted to the emergency protocols. She moved with efficiency, asking questions only when necessary, anticipating needs before he voiced them. Rook stayed close, whining occasionally as the barometric pressure dropped and the wind began to howl. The storm hit like a physical blow. One moment they were sealing the last biodome airlock. The next, the world became a screaming chaos of sand and wind. Visibility dropped to nothing. The triple suns vanished behind churning darkness, and the temperature plummeted 15 degrees in as many seconds. Inside, Jace shouted, grabbing Nissa's arm and pulling her toward the HAB unit. They stumbled through the door just as the full fury unleashed. The structure groaned under the assault, its reinforced walls flexing but holding. Jace activated the emergency shutters, sealing them inside with emergency lighting, casting everything in red-tinged shadows. Nissa leaned against the wall, breathing hard, her skin flickering with that alien luminescence. In the red light, she looked otherworldly, beautiful and strange and utterly compelling. How long do these usually last? She asked. 6 to 8 hours. Jace moved to check the structural integrity monitors. All green, but the stress readings were climbing. Sometimes longer. So we're trapped here together. Something in her voice made him turn. She was watching him with an intensity that had nothing to do with the storm. No more running. No more distractions. Just truth. Jace felt his pulse quicken. What do you mean? Nissa pushed off from the wall, moving into the small living space. She'd removed her coat earlier, and now she pulled off the tactical vest as well, leaving her in a simple fitted shirt that revealed the graceful lines of her form. The luminescence beneath her skin pulsed gently, like a slow heartbeat. I haven't told you everything, she said, settling onto the worn couch. About who I am. What I am. Jace joined her, maintaining a careful distance. I'm listening. My name is Nissa Vale, but that's only half true. On my homeworld of Luminos, we don't have surnames the way humans do. We have essence names, identities that describe what we are, not who we're descended from. She held up her hand, and the glow intensified, spreading in patterns across her skin like circuit traces. Veil is what I became, what I chose to be. It means hidden truth. What were you before? Nissa Soulweaver, daughter of the Planetary Terraforming Council, heir to my mother's seat. Her laugh was bitter. I was going to change worlds, Jace. Literally. I had the training, the resources, the political backing. And then Helix Corporation came to Luminos with Phoenix strain. The HAB unit shuddered under a particularly violent gust, but neither of them broke eye contact. They promised a demonstration on a neighboring moon. Nissa continued, her voice tight with old pain. A dead rock that could become a garden. My mother was skeptical. She'd seen too many corporate promises fail, but the council outvoted her. We watched from orbital platforms as they deployed the strain. What happened? Magic. For 48 hours, it was pure magic. We watched an entire moon transform. Atmosphere generated, water condensed, vegetation spreading like wildfire. It was everything we dreamed terraforming could be. Her hands clenched. Then the colonists started dying. Jace's chest tightened. The neurological damage you mentioned, it wasn't just damage. It was transformation. The Phoenix strain doesn't just change the environment. It changes everything in contact with it at a cellular level. Most people's neurologies can't handle the cascade. They burn out. Her voice dropped to a whisper. My mother was in the first settlement wave. She wanted to study the process from the inside. Nissa. She lasted 3 weeks. Long enough to send me her research notes. Long enough to tell me that Helix knew. They'd run tests. They understood the risks. They deployed anyway because the profit potential was worth the acceptable losses. The glow beneath her skin intensified, anger and grief mixing. I was 23 years old when I watched my mother dissolve into madness on a comm screen. The storm raged outside, but inside the HAB unit, the only sound was their breathing. Jace wanted to reach for her, to offer comfort, but something told him she needed to finish first. I spent 2 years infiltrating Helix, Nissa said. Changed my essence name, learned to hide what I was. Worked my way into their agricultural division because my expertise was too valuable to ignore. And I waited. Her violet eyes locked onto his. I waited until I found proof of every crime they'd committed. Every test result they'd buried. Every colony they'd sacrificed for profit. That's what's on the data crystal. Everything. Names, dates, mortality statistics, suppressed research. Enough to bring down not just Helix, but every executive who authorized the deployments. She leaned forward. But here's what I haven't told you. Why I chose your settlement specifically. Jace's breath caught. Why? Because Phoenix strain isn't inherently deadly. The problem is rapid, uncontrolled deployment. But my mother's research, her final gift to me, showed that with proper mediation, with someone who understands cellular transformation. She held up her glowing hands. Someone like me, like what Luminous people are. It can be made safe. I can feel the transformation happening at a molecular level. I can regulate it, prevent the cascade that causes neurological damage. Understanding dawned. That's why you needed a remote location, a controlled environment, and a partner desperate enough to take the risk. Someone with everything to lose and nothing left to lose it with. Her expression softened. I thought I was using you, Jace. I'm not proud of that. I saw your posting and thought, perfect. A remote settlement, a struggling rancher, someone who won't ask too many questions. But then I met you. The HAB unit groaned as the storm intensified, but Jace barely noticed. What changed? You didn't look at me like a resource or a problem to solve. You looked at me like a person. Nissa's voice trembled. When Darkwater's team arrived, you could have turned me over, collected whatever bounty they were offering. Instead, you invoked settlers' rights. You protected me without knowing if I deserved it. Did you? Deserve it? I don't know, she admitted. I've done questionable things, Jace. Stolen corporate secrets. Killed 2 security officers who discovered me, in self-defense, but they're still dead. Manipulated a lonely rancher into harboring a fugitive. Her eyes glistened with tears that caught the red emergency lighting. But I've also dedicated 5 years of my life to exposing a corporation that's murdered thousands. I've sacrificed everything I was to become someone who could stop them. Does that balance the scales? Jace finally closed the distance between them, taking her glowing hands in his. Her skin was warm, almost feverish, and he could feel a subtle vibration beneath the surface, energy moving through her in ways he couldn't comprehend. I don't know about scales, he said quietly, but I know you spent 6 hours today treating my crops like they mattered. Like saving one struggling settlement on the edge of nowhere was worth your expertise. That tells me something about who you are now, regardless of who you had to become. A tear escaped down Nissa's cheek, luminescent against her skin. I'm terrified, she whispered. Tomorrow Darkwater will bring everything they have. Lawyers, fabricated evidence, probably more mercenaries. And I'll stand in front of Marshal Crane with nothing but stolen data and the word of a dead woman. You'll have more than that. Jace squeezed her hands gently. You'll have proof. By tomorrow, your treatment should be showing results in Biodome 3. We can demonstrate that Phoenix strain can work safely. One small test won't be enough, then we make it enough. We document everything. We show Marshal Crane what you're really trying to do. He lifted one hand to her face, wiping away the glowing tear. We show him the truth. Nyssa's breath hitched. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. I know enough. Jace's thumb traced her cheek, marveling at the warmth and the subtle light beneath. I know you're brilliant and brave and more alone than anyone should be. I know you look at dying things and see potential for life. And I know that when you think no one's watching, you smile at Rook like he's the first good thing you've seen in years. A laugh bubbled out of her, half sob, half genuine amusement. He's a very good dog. He is. Jace leaned closer, his heart hammering. And I know that I've been alone on this rock for 4 years, convincing myself that Saul,